The monthly process for working with the clients is actually pretty easy, and it truly is cyclic. So let me show you. This is sort of the notes. These are my actual internal notes. So I'm actually going to create a copy of this and attach them to this lecture as a resource. So you'll be able to print this out, because doing this from memory just blows. So let me walk you through it, and I'll explain it. So the whole idea is this process starts on the first of the month and runs to the end of the month. In the beginning, I used to do this with a client whenever they joined us. So if a client joined on the second Tuesday or something, we would run a 1 month cycle from that. But it became a real problem, because there was a point when I had over a dozen active clients running this project, or this particular process, with all these different start and end times. It was a nightmare to manage it. Okay, I mean, you imagine if you got, say, 10 clients, each one starting at a different point throughout the month, and each one requiring that you handle a different step in the process at different times. I mean, I'm a trained project manager. I've managed multi-million-dollar, software development for governments in the military, and even this was nightmarishly complicated. And so I thought there has to be an easier way, and it turns out there was. It's simple as putting everybody on the same cycle. First of the month, end of the month. First of the month, end of the month. If somebody joins up in the beginning of the month, that's awesome. You start them on the first of the month. You just use the extra couple of weeks or week or whatever it is to bring them on board. And as you'll see, actually, depending on when they sign up, they'll fit nicely into the cycle. So here's the cycle process. First of the month is when we handle billing. That's actually at the bottom of this process document, but let's just start with number one. So on or about the 14th, the closest weekday, I don't work weekends. Generally, I try not to work Fridays, but that's just me. So on about the 14th of the month, so about sort of the second week, what you do is you order the next month's content, and you order it from the contractors. Those are the people that are going to write this stuff for you. You can do it yourself if that's your thing, but I've built this entire process so that I can have other people do this for me. That way around I can scale it. Last time I checked, there were only 24 hours in a day, and I'm generally only good for a certain number of them. Then I need rest, food, and all the other things that we humans want. So, by all means, start off doing some of this stuff yourself if you want. But the entire process is designed to deal with individuals and outsourced. It also provides you with a considerable amount of what they call resilience. So on or about the 14th of the month, order the next batch of work from the contractors. There's another lecture showing the video that we use when we order the content from the contractors. So make sure you reference that. So here's how we handle the contractors. We send them an email and we say that we'd like another batch of content. The instructions for that are included elsewhere. 2 days prior to the expected receipt, in other words, so we order it on or about the 14th or 15th. We send a request to the contractor, and typically we say to the contractor, can we have this in about a week's time? So once we've developed a working relationship with contractors, they know that the order comes in around the end of the second week with the expectation that they will write their content by the end of the third week being somewhere around the 21st of the month. So what we do on the 19th of the month, which is number 2 on the bullet list here, is we send them a nudge. So 2 days prior to the expected receipt, and that is sort of that date, we send them a little email just to say, is everything okay? We didn't do that in the beginning, and we would find that we'd get all the way up to the 21st and nothing would happen, or sometimes it wouldn't arrive, and then the 22nd, and then we'd be nudging them on the 23rd, and it would be in all panic mode. So what we found was being proactive tends to be the really smart way to go. So 2 days prior, we nudge them. Then or about on the 21st of the month, we make sure we get the files that we requested. So here's how we do this. We cross-check receipt of the deliverable against each client work order, and you'll see documentation of this inside the system. So if we've ordered 50 Facebook updates from contractor A for client X, we make sure that that's what we get. And one of the things we do, by the way, is we use Evernote. internally as our primary document management and content system. It's really easy to use. I don't want to sort of sound like I'm promoting, but if you check around, you'll see that I've not only written a book on the subject, but there's actually a training course out there as well. But I won't give you the name, so nobody can tell me I'm being overly promotional. But you can find it if you hunt. What we do then is we open each file and we ensure that the content is correct. Okay? We do a visual check. For instance, we make sure that when we get the content, we run it through spell checker. Because even though we will tell them to spell check it, sometimes these contractors forget. And we will ensure that the date time column is formatted properly. Now, the reason we worry about this formatting, it can be MMYYYY, or it can be MMDDYYYY. Doesn't matter which one of these configurations you choose, just so long as you're consistent. Because the tool that we use later when we're uploading this for clients is Hootsuite. And Hootsuite asks for the data to look like this. And of course, there's the 24-hour configuration. We want to make sure that we get a comma-separated value file back. That's how we actually handle these updates. And generally, it comes in 3 columns. The first column is the date. The second column tends to be the time. The date and time of the first column. The second one is the update column. And the third one is often a web address, a URL column. And we just make sure that this information looks this way. There are samples of files in the resource section. So if you want to know what these things look like, you can go check them out. It really isn't very complicated. Computers, I've been working with computers now for on 30 odd years. And while on the surface they seem incredibly intelligent, I absolutely guarantee the average computer is as dumb as a bag of hammers. It literally is. So as long as you remember that you're dealing with an incredibly powerful but simple system, in this case a computer, and never assume, you'll be fine. What else? And make sure you have proper encoding. This is some pretty advanced stuff. One of the things that happens from time to time is when you're dealing with contractors, somebody might be using a Mac, somebody might be using a PC. And without getting into too much technical wizardry, if they create a file, sometimes it comes with a different encoding. Now you'll notice if the encoding is off because you'll see sort of funky little characters in the file, things that don't look like letters or numbers or punctuation. If you see that, it's not impossible to fix. It's just generally what it means is that the contractor is encoding it slightly differently. And what you want to get them to do generally is pick standard encoding. They might have switched something over, or they might be using a slightly different, encoding algorithm. Off the top of my head right now, I can't remember what they are. But if I see enough of these, if I see enough people asking about this, maybe what I'll do is do the research and find it. But know this much: if you expect a text and you get gobbledygook, chances are their encoding's off. And all you do is you write back to the contractor and sort of send them a polite note to say, look, fix it, please. See, it's easy to fix. Errors are not paid for. So once we've got the file back from the contractor, this is important, okay? So really pay attention to number 3 for a sec. Once you get the work back and we've reviewed it and improved it, you need to open the file. Okay, you've got the file open. You need to save the file using Save As. So let's imagine you've opened up the CSV file and you're editing it in your chosen spreadsheet, maybe Excel, maybe Numbers on a Mac, or maybe Google Sheet or whatever it's called, any open source. As long as you're editing the comma-separated value file, CSV file, when you're done, you need to use Save As. And don't change anything, okay? One of the things that we do when it comes to naming files, is a bit of a sideline, is we will put the client code, then the channel, then the month and the year. So the file that we will request from a contractor will look like this. So I've used my initials, JCB, Twitter, September 2013. So I would know, for instance, that these are all the tweets for me for the month of September in the year 2013. So back to the point about using Save As. This is why, okay? Saving As removes the contractor information from the file. So right now, my name's James Birchall. My company has its own name. If I hire a contractor to create me a CSV file with my updates, I get them. Great. But I don't know if you know this, invariably the author and other metadata, which is data about data, tends to be attached to the file. It comes from the originating computer. And when it comes to you, that information will still be there. Now, it's not the end of the world if you forget to do this. It's just a bit kind of clumsy. What will happen is if you sent that file as was straight onto your client, and your client was sophisticated enough, or is just curious enough, they might see the contractor's information. They might have the contractor's name, or they might have the contractor's email address, or a website, or any of that information. But my policy has always been to not share that information with clients. So when I save a document as, it strips away all of that extra metadata, because now essentially it's being saved as a brand new document with all of my metadata, losing all the contractor's metadata, keeps all the actual information that the contractor wrote inside the file, keeps the file name and stuff, but it's now cleaned. Okay, it's like laundering a file to remove all the fingerprints from the person who worked on it before you. If you remember anything, remember this. And by the way, this isn't just useful for this particular project. If you're dealing with anybody's information and you ever need to pass it on, one of the ways to wipe away the footprints, the fingerprints, and the actual proof that someone else was working on it, at least at a regular level, simply do a save as. Okay?